The Thorn King's Shadow. The first thing you learn in the Court of Whispers is how to listen. Not with your ears, but with your skin. You feel the lies in the chill draft that slithers through the marble halls of the Silver Citadel. You taste the treachery in the cloying sweetness of the wine. And you see the truth in the shadows that cling to the throne of King Alaric, shadows that are growing longer with every passing day. My name is Eliana. And I am a prisoner in a gilded cage. My cage is the estate of Lord Kyren, master of the king's hounds, a man whose heart is as cold as the deep northern frost. He is my protector, my warden, my betrothed. The title was his reward for saving me from a fate I can no longer clearly remember, a fire, a scream, the smell of burning roses and dark magic. He pulled me from the ashes of my old life and into the suffocating silence of his own. I owe him my life, a debt he ensures I can never forget. His eyes, the color of a winter storm, hold no warmth, only a possessive calculation. Tonight, the cage door was opened, and I was paraded at the king's masquerade. The citadel was a riot of false colors and hollow laughter. Nobles in silks and jewels moved like painted dolls, their faces hidden behind masks of gilt and feathers, their whispers sharp enough to draw blood. In the center of it all sat King Alaric on his thornwood throne. Once a warrior king, now a man haunted, his fingers constantly tracing the silver filigree of a holy symbol, his gaze darting towards the dark corners of the hall as if expecting the shadows to reach for him. He is obsessed with portents and prophecies, with rooting out the decay he believes is festering in his kingdom. The real decay, I think, is right here, in this room, festering in the hearts of his court. And then there is Prince Adrian, the king's brother. Handsome, charming, with a smile that doesn't reach his cunning eyes. He moves through the crowd like a serpent, coiling a word here, a promise there. His ambition is a palpable force, a low hum of magic that makes the air around him crackle. I felt his gaze on me more than once, a look of appraisal that had nothing to do with beauty and everything to do with power. I am a piece on the board, and he is a player. It was to escape that suffocating attention that I slipped away, finding a moment of solitude on a secluded balcony overlooking the royal gardens. Below, the fountains glittered under the twin moons, but the forest beyond the walls was a sea of impenetrable black. I removed my mask, letting the cool night air kiss my cheeks, and for a single, precious moment, I was free. That's when I heard the voice. Not the clipped, polished tone of the court, but a voice rich and warm, like dark honey. A rare sight. Someone seeking truth in a palace of illusions. I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. A man stood a few feet away, having approached as silently as a ghost. He wasn't dressed in the flamboyant silks of the court, but in the dark, practical leathers of a knight, though no crest adorned his tunic. His mask was a simple affair of black leather, but it did nothing to hide the intensity of his gaze. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the easy grace of a swordsman. "This balcony was my refuge for the night," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. I did not wish for company. He gave a slight, charming bow. "My apologies, my lady. I shall leave you to your thoughts." But he didn't move. His eyes, a startling shade of summer sky blue, held mine. "It's just, you look like you're waiting for an arrow to strike. Or perhaps to fire one." His perception was unnerving. In this court, it is wise to be prepared for both. He took a step closer, and I caught the scent of leather, steel, and clean air. "I am Sir Valtor," he said, as if the name should explain his boldness. It did. Whispers of Sir Valtor had even reached my sequestered life. A knight of incredible skill, without land or title, who had won his spurs through sheer valor. He was said to be fiercely loyal, but to whom, no one was quite sure. He served Prince Adrian, but his honor was his own. He was a man of passion in a world of cold politics. "I know of you," I said quietly. "And I of you, Lady Eliana. The ward of Lord Kyren. The jewel he keeps locked away." There was no malice in his tone, only a frank curiosity that was more disarming than flattery. We spoke then. Not the empty words of the court, but of real things. He spoke of the wild, untamed magic of the eastern marches, of fighting beasts whose scales turned steel and whose breath was shadow. I found myself, to my own astonishment, speaking of the weight of silence, of the frustration of a mind with no outlet but needlework and memory. I told him of my love for the old tales of heroism and magic, tales that felt more real than the gilded hall at our backs. He listened. Truly listened, as if my every word was a treasure. The space between us crackled with an energy I had never felt before, a terrifying, exhilarating current. When his hand briefly brushed against mine as he pointed towards a constellation, a spark, real and warm, leapt from his skin to mine. It was a simple, accidental touch, but it felt more intimate than any kiss I could imagine. It was over too soon. The sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps approached. Lord Kyren emerged from the archway, his unmasked face a mask of cold control. His stormy eyes took in the scene, me, flushed and breathless, a stranger knight standing too close. "Eliana," he said, his voice a low threat. "You are needed." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. I nodded, pulling my mask back on, my shield against the world. As I moved to pass Kyren, I dared one last glance at Sir Valtor. He gave me the faintest of nods, a promise of something unspoken. Kyren's hand closed around my arm, not painfully, but with a firmness that brooked no argument. His touch was a shackle. As he led me away, back towards the noise and the lies, he leaned close, his breath cold against my ear. "That man is a sword without a master, a danger to all around him. You will not speak to him again." He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. "The king is unsettled. The court is a nest of vipers, and Prince Adrian's ambition grows bolder. We are leaving the citadel at first light. Your safety is my only concern." But as I walked beside him, the ghost of Sir Valtor's touch still tingled on my skin, and the memory of his voice echoed in my mind. For the first time since the fire, I had felt alive. And I knew, with a certainty that terrified and thrilled me, that my life in the gilded cage had just ended. The door had been opened, not by my warden, but by a shadowed knight with summer in his eyes, and I would never be able to close it again. The game had begun, and I was no longer just a piece. I was a player. And I was in love. The journey back to Kyren's estate, Blackwood Keep, was a silent, grim procession. The gilded halls of the Silver Citadel were replaced by the skeletal fingers of the ironwood forest, and the court's whispered lies were supplanted by the creak of leather and the mournful sigh of the wind. Kyren did not speak to me, but his silence was a heavier burden than any lecture. It was a wall of ice, built brick by brick from his displeasure. Blackwood Keep was a fortress of gloom, all sharp angles and dark stone, hunched against the mountainside as if ashamed of its own existence. It was a place that swallowed light and sound. My rooms were the highest in the western tower, with a view of the choking forest and the jagged peaks beyond. A beautiful prison, with the most attentive of jailers. Kyren's servants were silent, efficient ghosts, their eyes never meeting mine. I was alone, with only the memory of a blue-eyed knight for company. A week passed. Then another. The memory of Sir Valtor began to feel like a dream, a beautiful, desperate fantasy I'd concocted to survive the suffocating reality. I threw myself into the few distractions I had, ancient, crumbling grimoires from Kyren's library, tending to the rare, night-blooming sylvan roses in the glass-domed conservatory. But my mind was elsewhere, replaying a single conversation on a moonlit balcony. It was on a night when the rain lashed against the window panes like 1,000 frantic fingers that the impossible happened. A small, sharp tink against the glass. I ignored it, thinking it was the storm. Then another. Heart hammering, I went to the window and peered out into the swirling darkness. Below, barely visible in a flash of lightning, was a figure. A man, hooded against the rain, his face upturned. He gestured, then threw another small pebble. It struck the glass with unerring accuracy. It was him. Sir Valtor. My breath caught. It was madness. Suicide. Kyren's wards were said to be woven with dark magic, alerting him to any intruder. Yet, here he was. I fumbled with the heavy latch, pushing the casement window open. The wind and rain whipped into the room, a wild, chaotic contrast to the dead air inside. "Are you mad?" I hissed down into the gale. His voice, though hushed, carried up to me, filled with a reckless joy. "Certifiably. But a madness I find I quite enjoy. Can you get out?" I couldn't. But I also couldn't say no. A wild, desperate courage seized me. I pointed towards the back of the keep, to the old, disused grove where the wall had crumbled, a place I knew was less watched. The grove. A half hour. Can you find it? For you, I could find a single drop of water in a desert, he called back, and then he was gone, swallowed by the shadows. What followed was the most terrifying and thrilling half-hour of my life. Slipping past the few guards was a delicate dance of shadow and silence, a skill I'd perfected over years of confinement. The rain was my ally, masking the sound of my footsteps. I reached the grove, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. He emerged from behind the great, gnarled trunk of an ironwood tree, pushing back his hood. He was soaked, water streaming down his face, but he was smiling. "Eliana." That single word, spoken in his voice, undid me. In 2 strides, he closed the distance between us. There were no words then. He cupped my face in his hands, his touch both gentle and fiercely possessive, and he kissed me. It was not a courtly kiss. It was a claiming, a confession, a rebellion. It was the taste of rain and recklessness and a feeling so profound it stole the very air from my lungs. It was a magic more potent than any spell in Kyren's books. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, the world had irrevocably changed. How? I managed to whisper, my fingers clinging to the wet leather of his tunic. "A knight has his secrets," he said, his thumb stroking my cheek. "And a man in love has his reasons to be reckless." I couldn't stay away. "The thought of you here, in this tomb," he looked around, his expression darkening. "Kyren is not what he seems, Eliana. His influence over the king grows. He whispers poison in Alaric's ear, fanning the flames of his paranoia. He is using the king's fear to consolidate his own power." "I know he is ambitious," I said, the old fear creeping back in. "But he saved me." "Did he?" Valtor's gaze was intense. "Are you so sure? The fire that took your family, its origins were never clear. It's convenient, is it not, for a man to rescue a noble heiress, to become her sole protector, to control her lands and her future?" A cold dread, colder than the rain, trickled down my spine. I had never allowed myself to voice that dark, formless suspicion. "You have no proof." "Not yet," he admitted. "But Prince Adrian is no friend of Kyren's. He sees the threat he poses. He has resources. He seeks to break Kyren's hold on the king. And on you." So that was it. I was a pawn in a greater game between Kyren and the prince. The warmth his kiss had ignited in me flickered. "And you? Are you here for me, Sir Valtor? Or are you here for your prince?" He looked genuinely wounded. He took my hand and placed it over his heart. I could feel the strong, steady beat beneath the damp leather. This heart knows only one loyalty now. It beats for you. I serve Adrian because he is the lesser of two evils, because he offers a path to a world where a man like Kyren does not hold sway. But I am my own man. And I am yours, if you will have me. The sincerity in his voice washed away my doubt. Here, in the storm-lashed grove, it was easy to believe in oaths sworn on a heartbeat. We spoke in hushed, urgent tones after that, weaving a fragile plan. He would return when it was safe. We would use the prince's network, find proof of Kyren's machinations. We would find a way to break my engagement, to be free. It became our secret life. For weeks, we met in the dead of night, in the forgotten grove, our world reduced to whispered words, stolen touches, and the desperate, hopeful fire we kindled in each other's souls. He brought me small tokens, a feather from a sun-hawk, a crystal that glowed with soft inner light. I brought him my trust, my heart, my everything. It was a beautiful, fragile dream. And like all dreams, it was not built to last. I grew careless. The constant fear was a price I was willing to pay for those moments of stolen joy. But one night, returning to my chambers, my cloak still damp with dew and smelling of the night air, I found him waiting. Lord Kyren stood before my cold fireplace, his back to me. The room was dark, lit only by a single candle, and the shadows writhed around him like living things. He did not turn. "The grove is lovely this time of year, is it not?" His voice was soft, conversational, and all the more terrifying for it. So, secluded. My blood ran cold. I could not speak. Slowly, he turned. His face was a calm mask, but his eyes were a blizzard of fury. "Did you think I would not know? Did you think my protection, my care for you, was so blind?" He took a step towards me. "I have allowed you your freedoms, Eliana. I have been patient. But this betrayal, with that landless, honorless dog. He has more honor in his little finger than you possess in your entire being." The words were out before I could stop them, a defiant spark in the face of his glacial rage. The blow was not physical, but it was devastating. He didn't move, but a wave of oppressive, dark magic slammed into me, a weight of pure despair that drove me to my knees. It was the feeling of the cage door slamming shut, forever. "You are mine," he said, each word dripping with venomous finality. "You have always been mine. I pulled you from the ashes and I fashioned you into something precious. And I will not see you tarnished by a common night's infatuation." He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the latch. "The grove will be patrolled by my shadowhounds from tonight onward. Your window will be warded. Your night will not reach you again." He left me there, on the cold floor, the taste of ash and despair in my mouth. The fragile dream was shattered. The whispers of the court, the intrigue of the princes, it was all a distant game. This, here in the darkness, was the real war. And I had just lost the first, and most crucial, battle. The gilded cage was now a dungeon of iron, and the memory of Valtor's kiss was the only flicker of light in an encroaching, absolute dark. The days that followed were a form of living death. Kyren's presence was a constant, suffocating shroud. He did not shout, he did not threaten further. His punishment was more insidious. He was always there, a silent observer at every meal, a shadow in the corridor outside my rooms, his cold gaze a reminder of my transgression and his absolute control. The estate felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for an axe to fall. I was allowed my books, my roses, but the joy was gone from them. They were just things now, props in the elaborate play of my imprisonment. I traced the words in the grimoires without seeing them, my mind a frantic, caged bird beating against the bars of my skull. Where was Valtor? Had Kyren's threats kept him away? Or had something worse happened? The not knowing was a special kind of torture. It was a fortnight later when the monotony was broken. A royal messenger, his tabard bearing the silver stag of King Alaric, arrived at Blackwood Keep. Kyren summoned me to the great hall to hear the proclamation. His expression was unreadable, but I sensed a new tension in him, a sharpened focus. By order of His Majesty, King Alaric, the herald announced, his voice echoing in the cavernous room, a grand conclave is summoned. All high nobles and their households are to attend at the Silver Citadel. The kingdom is threatened by shadows, both within and without, and the crown must stand united. A conclave. The entire court, gathered in one place. My heart, which had felt like a stone in my chest, gave a painful, hopeful thud. The citadel. Where Valtor was. Kyren dismissed the herald and turned to me. You will accompany me, of course. It would seem suspicious if you did not. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for me. But understand this, Eliana. You are mine. You will be at my side. You will speak when spoken to. You will not seek him out. If you so much as look in his direction, the consequences will not fall upon you. He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. They will fall upon him. I will challenge him formally and cut him down in front of the entire court. His blood will be on your hands. The hope curdled into a new, more potent fear. He meant it. I saw the truth in his wintry eyes. He would kill Valtor and make me watch, all under the guise of honor and defending his betrothed's virtue. We returned to the Silver Citadel, but it was a different place than the one I had left. The gilded frivolity was gone, replaced by a palpable, nervous energy. King Alaric was more gaunt, more haunted. He held the conclave in the Hall of Thorns, a vast, circular chamber where the walls were carved to resemble a tangled, petrified forest. He spoke of conspiracies, of a canker in the soul of Arden, his eyes wild as they scanned the faces of his nobles, seeing traitors in every shadow. Prince Adrian stood near the throne, the picture of loyal concern, but I could see the calculation in his gaze. He was waiting, a spider at the edge of his web. And then I saw him. Valtor. He was standing behind Prince Adrian, clad in the prince's colors now. Our eyes met across the crowded hall. It was like a lightning strike. The air crackled between us. I saw the relief in his face, the desperate question in his eyes. I gave the faintest, almost imperceptible shake of my head, my own gaze pleading with him to be careful. To stay away. I saw the confusion, then the dawning understanding, and finally, a grim resolve settle on his features. The conclave was a theater of veiled accusations and political maneuvering. Kyren was at the king's elbow constantly, his voice a low, persuasive murmur, pointing out this lord's slight, that lady's rumored disloyalty. He was weaving his web, using the king's paranoia to ensnare his rivals. It was Prince Adrian who made the bold move. During a lull in the proceedings, he stepped forward and bowed deeply to his brother. "Your Majesty, this talk of shadows and threats chills the blood. But words are a poor shield against daggers in the dark. Let us have a demonstration of loyalty. A tournament of skill. Let your champions prove their devotion not with flattering words, but with steel and valor. It will lift the spirits of the court and remind us all where true strength lies." King Alaric, ever susceptible to spectacle, agreed. "A grand idea. A tourney. 3 days hence. Let the finest knights of Arden compete for the crown's favor." My blood ran cold. A tournament. A sanctioned arena for violence. I looked at Kyren and saw a faint, cruel smile touch his lips. He looked at Valtor, and then at me. The message was clear. The stage was being set. The next 2 days were agony. The citadel buzzed with preparations. I was trapped in a gilded nightmare, playing the part of the dutiful betrothed at Kyren's side, while every instinct screamed for me to find Valtor, to warn him, to tell him to flee. The night before the tourney, I found a way. Desperation is the mother of invention. I used a simple glamour, a minor illusion spell I'd found scribbled in the margin of one of Kyren's books, meant to make a single rose appear to bloom out of season. I twisted it, focusing all my will on making myself unnoticeable. It wasn't invisibility, just a gentle push on the perception of others. It was exhausting, like holding my breath for an impossibly long time. I slipped into the gardens, moving like a ghost through the moonlit paths. I found him near the same balcony where we had first spoken, pacing like a caged wolf. "Valtor," I whispered, letting the glamour drop. He spun around, and in 2 strides, he had me in his arms. The feel of him, solid and real, was almost enough to break me. "Eliana. Gods, I've been going mad. Kyren has you locked away tighter than the royal treasury. You have to leave," I begged, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "Withdraw from the tourney. It's a trap. He means to kill you. He told me he would challenge you." He held me tighter. "I know. And I welcome it." I pulled back, staring at him in horror. "What? No. Eliana, listen to me," he said, his hands cupping my face. "This is the only way. If he challenges me in the lists, it will be a fight to the death. But it will be a fair fight. A public one. My skill against his. It is our only chance to break his hold on you legally, honorably. If I win, you are free. And if you lose..." My voice was a broken whisper. "Then I will die knowing I fought for you," he said simply. "But I have no intention of losing. I have faced darker things in the eastern marches than Lord Kyren. He was so confident, so brave. But I had felt the chilling, oppressive weight of Kyren's magic. It was not just steel he commanded. It won't be fair, Valtor. He has other resources. Dark ones. All the more reason to face him now," Valtor insisted. "To expose him for what he is in front of the entire kingdom." He kissed me then, a hard, desperate kiss filled with all the fear and hope and terrible love that was tearing us both apart. "Trust me, my love. This is our path out of the shadows." I wanted to believe him. With every fiber of my being, I wanted to. But as I made my way back to my chambers, the cold dread had settled deep in my bones. I had seen the look in Kyren's eyes. He did not play by the rules of honor. He played to win. And the tourney field would not be a field of honor. It would be an altar, and Valtor was walking willingly towards it, a sacrificial lamb filled with brave, foolish hope. The prince's gambit had set the pieces in motion, and now an unseen blade was poised to strike, its edge honed on cold ambition and a love that threatened to destroy everything. The day of the tourney dawned bright and cold, a pale sun glinting off the pennants and polished steel of the tournament grounds. The air was thick with the smell of trampled grass, roasted meat, and the sharp, oily scent of anticipation. The nobility of Arden filled the stands, a riot of color and noise, but beneath the festive surface ran a current of raw, predatory tension. This was not mere sport. It was a bloodletting. King Alaric sat in the royal box, hunched and twitchy, his fingers worrying at a silver talisman around his neck. Prince Adrian was a calm, smiling counterpoint at his side, but his eyes were constantly moving, assessing, cataloging the allegiances of the cheering crowd. I was seated next to Kyren, my body rigid, my hands clenched so tightly in the silk of my gown that my nails left half-moon indentations in my palms. Kyren was as composed as ever, his expression one of mild, detached interest. He might have been watching a particularly dull play. The early justs were a blur of thundering hooves, splintering lances, and roared accolades. Knights in shining armor clashed, unhorsing each other for the glory of their lords and the favor of the king. But the crowd was waiting. They were waiting for the main event. The conflict that had been simmering in the court's shadows was about to be brought into the brutal, honest light of the sun. Finally, the herald's trumpet sounded a long, clear note that cut through the din, "My lords, my ladies. A challenge of honor. Lord Kyren, master of the king's hounds, claims grievance against Sir Valtor, champion of Prince Adrian. They will contest their quarrel in a joust à l'outrance. To the death." A roar erupted from the stands. To the death. The words hung in the air, cold and final. My heart stopped. I watched as Valtor rode into the lists on his powerful grey destrier. He looked like a hero from the old tales, his armor polished to a brilliant silver, his shield bare of any crest, a statement of his own making. He lifted his visor, and his gaze found mine across the distance. He gave me a single, confident nod. "Trust me." Then Kyren entered. He was a study in darkness. His armor was blackened steel, etched with subtle, cruel-looking runes that seemed to drink the light. His helm was fashioned like the head of a snarling wolf. He did not look at me. He didn't need to. His entire being was a threat. They took their positions at opposite ends of the list. The world seemed to slow, the noise of the crowd fading to a dull roar in my ears. The marshal dropped the white handkerchief. They charged. The thunder of their horses' hooves was a drumbeat of doom. They lowered their lances, 2 points of deadly focus hurtling towards each other. The impact was a sickening crash of wood and steel. Kyren's lance struck Valtor's shield dead center, shattering into 1,000 splinters. But Valtor's aim was true. His lance hit Kyren's shoulder, a glancing blow, but with enough force to make the Black Knight sway in his saddle. A cheer went up for Valtor. He had drawn first blood. Hope, treacherous and wild, flared in my chest. They retrieved fresh lances and charged again. This time, Valtor adjusted, aiming for Kyren's center mass. But as they closed, I saw it. A faint, dark shimmer surrounded Kyren, a distortion in the air like heat haze on a summer road. Valtor's lance, true and strong, seemed to slide away at the last second, skittering off the black armor without finding purchase. It was not a clean miss. It was unnatural. Kyren's lance, however, struck true. It hit Valtor's shield with colossal force, and this time, it did not break. It was Valtor's shield that cracked, the wood splintering with a sound like a falling tree. Valtor was thrown from his saddle, landing hard on the packed earth in a cloud of dust. The crowd gasped. I was on my feet, a scream trapped in my throat. The rules of a joust à l'outrance dictated the fight was not over until one combatant yielded or died. Kyren dismounted, drawing his longsword, a blade as dark and cruel as his armor. Valtor staggered to his feet, drawing his own brighter steel. The joust was over. Now it was a duel on foot. Valtor was the better swordsman. It was clear from the first exchange. He was faster, more fluid, his movements economical and deadly. He pressed Kyren, his blade a whirlwind of silver, forcing the larger man back. He landed a cut on Kyren's thigh, another on his arm. Dark blood, almost black, welled from the wounds. But Kyren did not falter. He fought with a cold, relentless patience. And he cheated. It was subtle. A flick of his gauntlet hand when the king wasn't looking. A low, guttural word spoken under his breath. A patch of ground beneath Valtor's feet would turn to mud, making him stumble. The sun would glare off Kyren's armor directly into Valtor's eyes at a critical moment. It was small magics, petty treacheries, but they were enough. They broke Valtor's rhythm, eroded his advantage. Valtor was tiring, his movements slowing a fraction. He saw an opening, a chance to end it. He lunged, his blade a silver streak aimed for the gap between Kyren's breastplate and gorget. It was a perfect, killing blow. And Kyren let it come. He moved at the last second, not to avoid it, but to guide it. Valtor's sword bit deep into Kyren's shoulder, but not deep enough to be fatal. And in that moment, as Valtor was overextended, Kyren struck. He didn't use his sword. He slammed his forehead, encased in solid steel, into Valtor's exposed face. I heard the crunch even from the stands. Valtor reeled back, blood streaming from his broken nose, his vision surely blurred. Kyren didn't hesitate. He swung his black sword in a brutal, horizontal arc. Valtor barely got his own blade up in time to parry, but the force of the blow was immense. It shattered his sword halfway down the blade. Disarmed, wounded, and dazed, Valtor stumbled and fell to one knee. Kyren stood over him, the victor. He raised his sword for the final blow. Yield! King Alaric shouted, his voice high and reedy. The fight is won. He yields. Kyren paused, his sword still raised. He looked not at the king, but at me. His wolf-like helm seemed to smile. This was the moment. He could claim the kill, end Valtor's life right here, and be within his rights. Or he could show mercy and prove his absolute power. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his sword. He reached down, grabbed Valtor by the hair, and forced his head up. Do you yield, dog? Valtor, through the blood and pain, spat a crimson glob onto Kyren's pristine black greave. I yield, nothing to the likes of you. Kyren backhanded him with his gauntlet, a casual, dismissive blow that knocked Valtor onto his back. Then live with your shame. He turned to the royal box and bowed. The honor of my house is satisfied, your majesty. It was a masterstroke of cruelty. He had not only defeated Valtor, he had humiliated him, broken him in front of the entire court, and made it look like magnanimity. He had proven that Valtor's skill and honor were no match for his own cold cunning and hidden power. As Kyren's men dragged Valtor's broken body from the field, Kyren walked back to our box. He removed his helm, his face calm, barely flushed from the exertion. He looked at me, and his eyes held a quiet, terrible triumph. "You see, my dear," he said, his voice soft, "for my ears only. Honor is a fragile weapon. It breaks too easily. Now you understand. There is no one who can take you from me. You are, and will always be, mine." I looked from his victorious face to the bloody trail Valtor's body had left on the grass. The hope that had bloomed in the grove, the love that had sustained me in the darkness, lay shattered on the crimson lists, as broken as the lance and the sword. Kyren hadn't just won a duel. He had shattered our future. And he had done it without even killing his rival, leaving him alive as a permanent, broken reminder of his own absolute power. The cage was no longer gilded or even iron. It was made of despair, and the lock had just been thrown for the final time. The victory feast that night was a celebration of Kyren's power, a symphony of forced merriment that grated against my shattered nerves. I sat beside him at the high table, a doll in a gown of midnight blue, my smile a rigid, painted-on mask. Every laugh, every toast to his valor and mercy, felt like a shard of glass twisting in my heart. I could still see the blood on the tourney field, still hear the awful crunch of bone. Kyren was the picture of the magnanimous victor, accepting praise with a modest nod, but his hand on mine under the table was a vice, a constant, possessive reminder. His touch no longer just chilled me, it felt corrosive, as if his very presence was leaching the color from the world. It was in the small hours, when the feast had devolved into drunken revelry, that Prince Adrian found me. I had escaped to a secluded alcove, my back against the cold stone wall, simply trying to breathe. "A tragic display," the prince murmured, appearing as if from the shadows themselves. He leaned against the opposite wall, swirling the wine in his goblet. He wasn't drunk. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "Valor is a poor shield against treachery. My champion is broken, and my brother's reliance on your betrothed grows by the hour." I said nothing. What was there to say? "He will be leaving soon," Adrian continued, his voice dropping. "Kyren. The king is sending him to the sunken temple, to consult the oracle there. He seeks guidance on the canker in the kingdom. He will be gone for 3 days." My head snapped up. 3 days. Kyren would be gone. The citadel, his oppressive presence, would be lifted. But the hope was a feeble, wounded thing. And what of Sir Valtor? Alive. In the royal infirmary. His body will heal. Adrian took a sip of wine. His spirit, that is another matter. He needs a reason to fight again. He looked at me, his meaning clear. A window on the east side of the Hall of Ancestors is known to have a faulty latch. It leads to a secluded garden path. Guards are less diligent there after the midnight bell. He pushed away from the wall and melted back into the crowd, leaving me with a dangerous gift, a sliver of time, a sliver of opportunity, and the name of a broken window. The next 2 days were an eternity. Kyren departed with a retinue of his shadowy retainers, his farewell a cold kiss on my forehead and a warning to be mindful. The moment his cavalcade disappeared beyond the gates, the very air in the citadel felt lighter. But my freedom was an illusion, a brief respite. I had a purpose. I waited until the deep of night, when the citadel slept. Using the same minor glamour, I slipped through the silent corridors, my heart a frantic bird against my ribs. I found the window in the Hall of Ancestors, its latch indeed broken. I squeezed through and descended a crumbling vine into a small, walled garden forgotten by time. And I waited. He came just before dawn, moving with a new, careful stiffness. Valtor. His face was a tapestry of bruises, one eye still swollen shut, his arm in a sling. He walked with a limp, the proud knight reduced to a shadow of his former self. When he saw me, he stopped, his one good eye widening in disbelief and then shame. Eliana, you shouldn't see me like this. I crossed the space between us and took his good hand. I see you, I whispered, my voice thick with tears. I see the man who fought for me. The man who is still here. He tried to pull away, but I held fast. He broke me. Not just my body. He proved that honor is a fool's game. That everything I believed in is a lie. No, I said, my voice hardening with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. He proved that he is a cheat and a coward. But that is not all he is. I took a deep breath, the words I had dreaded and desired to speak finally finding their way out. Valtor, the fire, the one that killed my family. I have been piecing it together. Things I heard, things I read in his library. Kyren studies a branch of magic that deals with emotional resonance, with harvesting grief. My family's estate bordered his. Our lands were fertile, coveted. The fire was too convenient. The way he appeared, a savior from the flames. I looked into his eyes, seeing the dawning horror in them. I believe Lord Kyren did not save me from the fire. I believe he started it. He murdered my family to claim their lands and to claim me. He didn't rescue a ward, he collected a prize. The truth, spoken aloud, hung in the cold air between us, ashen and terrible. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the key that turned Kyren from a cruel warden into a monstrous murderer. Valtor's shame and despair evaporated, burned away by a new, cold fury. His good hand clenched into a fist. He will pay for that. I swear it on my life. There's more, I said, the words tumbling out now. Prince Adrian told me of the sunken temple. The oracle there is said to speak only truths that can topple kingdoms. If Kyren is seeking its counsel, it is not for the king's benefit. It is for his own. He is making his final move for power. We have to stop him. We have to get to the oracle first. It was a mad plan. A suicidal one. But it was the only one we had. The broken knight and the pawn who knew the truth. We would become the hunters. We stole 2 horses from the royal stables as the sun began to bleed over the horizon. We rode not as a knight and his lady, but as 2 fugitives, cloaked and hooded, pushing our mounts hard, leaving the silver citadel and its web of lies behind. We rode for the sunken temple, a place of ancient power and forgotten dangers, a race against the most dangerous man in the kingdom. We reached the edge of the blighted mire by nightfall. The temple lay in its heart, a jagged ruin jutting from the stagnant water like a broken tooth. The air was thick with the smell of decay and a low, magical hum that set my teeth on edge. We secured the horses and ventured in on foot, following a slippery, overgrown path. We found Kyren in the central chamber, a circular room open to the sky, its stone floor carved with a massive, complex sigil. In the center stood a pedestal, and upon it floated a shimmering, amorphous light, the oracle. Kyren stood before it, his back to us, his arms outstretched. The crown of shadow, he was intoning, his voice resonant with power. The throne of thorns. Show me the path. Give me the words to break the weak king's mind and claim what is mine. The oracle pulsed, and a voice, like the grinding of continents, filled the chamber. The key is blood. The blood of the line you usurped. The girl's heart's blood, spilled on the thornwood throne, will shatter the old wards and make you master of the shadow that sleeps beneath it. My blood. To be spilled on the throne. To make him king. Kyren laughed, a sound of pure, triumphant evil. As I foresaw. Perfect. You will not touch her, Valtor's voice rang out, strong and clear for the first time since the tourney. He stepped from the shadows, his sword drawn, his body battered but his spirit blazing with renewed purpose. Kyren turned slowly, a smile of genuine pleasure on his face. The broken knight and the lost lamb. Come to witness my ascension. He gestured, and the dark runes on his armor began to glow with a sickly purple light. I will not kill you here, Valtor. I will make you watch. I will make you carry her corpse back to the citadel and present it to the king. Shadowy tendrils, like grasping hands, erupted from the sigils on the floor, snaking towards us. The final confrontation had begun, not on a tourney field, but in a sunken temple, with the fate of a kingdom and the truth of a murdered family hanging in the balance. We had run towards the danger, and now we faced it, not with the hope of victory, but with the desperate fury of those who have nothing left to lose. The temple chamber erupted into a nightmare. The shadowy tendrils Kyren summoned were not mere illusions, they were cold, solid things that whipped through the air, seeking to ensnare and crush. Valtor met them with a roar, his borrowed sword a blur of desperate motion. He was no longer fighting with the honorable precision of the lists, this was a brawl for survival, a savage dance against an unnatural foe. He severed a tendril that snapped at his throat, the severed end dissolving into black smoke that stank of ozone and rot. Run, Eliana, he shouted, parrying another grasping darkness. Get out of here. But I was done running. Kyren's confession, the oracle's terrible pronouncement, it had ignited a fire in me that burned away the last of my fear. This man had taken everything from me. My family. My home. My future. He would not take my will. My eyes darted around the chamber, past the swirling combat, to the ancient, pulsating light of the oracle. It was a being of pure truth, but Kyren had forced it to serve his ambition. I remembered the grimoires, the forgotten lore. An oracle's power was immense, but it was a mirror, it reflected the intent of the questioner. Kyren had asked for a path to power, and it had given him one, no matter how monstrous. I had a different question. While Valtor kept Kyren occupied, a frantic, brutal struggle of steel against sorcery, I darted around the edge of the chamber, avoiding the writhing shadows. I reached the pedestal, the oracle's light washing over me, filling my mind with a pressure that threatened to crack my skull. Oracle! I cried out, my voice small against the din of battle. I do not seek power. I seek justice. For my family, murdered by that man. What is the truth that can break him? The light flared, blindingly bright. The grinding voice spoke again, but this time, it was directed at me, and it was different, less in pronouncement, more a bestowal. The thorn defends the rose. The blood that seals can also break. His power is a borrowed shadow, a lie-given form. Show him his own reflection. A single, sharp thorn, seemingly carved from obsidian and glowing with a faint, silver light, materialized in the air before me and dropped into my outstretched hand. It was cold and warm at the same time, humming with a power that felt ancient and pure. At that moment, a cry of pain echoed through the chamber. A shadowy tendril had wrapped around Valtor's injured leg, yanking him off his feet. His head struck the stone floor with a sickening thud, and he lay still. Valtor! I screamed. Kyren laughed, dispersing the remaining shadows with a casual wave of his hand. A fitting end for a hero. unconscious for his own failure. He turned his gaze to me, his eyes alight with triumph. "And now, my dear. The final component of my crown." He advanced towards me, unhurried, confident. I stood my ground, the hidden thorn clenched tightly in my fist behind my back. "You killed them," I said, my voice trembling not with fear, but with rage. "You burned my home. You murdered my parents." He didn't deny it. He smiled. "They were in the way. You were the prize. A rose growing amongst weeds. I simply cleared the garden." He was close now, close enough to touch. "And now, you will grant me a kingdom. There is a poetry to it, don't you think?" As his hand shot out to grab my arm, I moved. I didn't try to run. I lunged forward, plunging the obsidian thorn directly into the palm of his outstretched hand. He roared, more in surprise than pain, and backhanded me across the face. I fell to the ground, my vision swimming. But I watched. The thorn, once embedded in his flesh, began to glow brighter. The silver light spread up his arm, through the runes on his armor, which sizzled and blackened like burnt paper. "What is this?" he snarled, trying to pull the thorn out, but it was as if it had fused with his bone. "Show him his own reflection," the oracle had said. The silver light reached his eyes. And he began to scream. Not a roar of anger, but a raw, terror-filled shriek. He was seeing it. The truth. Not the sanitized version he told himself, but the reality, the screaming children in the fire, the betrayal, the cold, calculated evil of every action, the hollow, loveless void that was his soul. The power he had cultivated, the shadow magic, was turning on him, showing him the monstrous reflection of what he truly was. No. It was necessary. It was my right, he screamed, clawing at his own face. The silver light was consuming him, burning him from the inside out. He stumbled back, away from me, towards the edge of the chamber where the floor gave way to the murky waters of the mire. With a final, agonized wail, he lost his footing and fell, his form swallowed by the black, stagnant water. A few bubbles rose to the surface, and then there was nothing. Silence descended, broken only by my ragged breaths. I scrambled over to Valtor. He was stirring, a nasty gash on his forehead, but alive. He looked at me, then at the spot where Kyren had fallen. "Eliana, what did you do?" I showed him the truth, I whispered, helping him to sit up. We returned to the Silver Citadel not as fugitives, but as bearers of dark tidings. We went directly to Prince Adrian. We told him everything. The murder, the oracle's prophecy, Kyren's death. The prince listened, his face a mask of grave concern, but I saw the flicker of triumph in his eyes. His greatest rival was gone. He was the one who broke the news to King Alaric. He presented it as a tragedy. Lord Kyren, driven mad by his own ambition, had confronted the oracle and been destroyed by the very dark magic he sought to wield. He painted Valtor and me as brave witnesses who had tried to stop him. King Alaric, already fragile, seemed to shrink further into his throne. The revelation of such deep betrayal so close to him broke something in his mind. Within a week, he abdicated the Thornwood throne, retreating into a secluded monastery to seek peace for his tormented soul. And so, Prince Adrian was crowned King Adrian of Arden. The coronation was a grand affair, a symbol of new beginnings. Valtor was at the front of the crowd, his injuries healing, his honor restored, hailed as a hero who had helped uncover a great treachery. The new king praised his loyalty and skill. After the ceremony, King Adrian summoned us both to his private chambers. He dismissed his guards and turned to us, his smile warm, but his eyes held the same calculating gleam they always had. "The kingdom owes you a great debt," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "Valtor, I would have you as my Lord Commander. The head of my royal guard. A position of immense trust and power." He then turned to me. "And Lady Eliana. Your lands are restored to you, of course. But you need a protector. A husband of suitable station." He looked between us, his smile widening. "It would please the crown immensely to see two such loyal subjects united. A public symbol of the new era of honor and trust one intend to build." It was everything we had fought for. Valtor, honored and restored. Me, free and in control of my own destiny. The freedom to be together, blessed by the king himself. It was a perfect, storybook ending. Valtor took my hand, his eyes full of love and hope. But as I looked at King Adrian's smiling face, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with Kyren's magic. I saw the web we were in. Adrian had used us. He had manipulated the events, from the tourney to this moment, to remove his brother and his greatest rival, and now he was placing his own loyal pieces on the board. We were his symbols. His tools. The gilded cage was gone. The iron dungeon was destroyed. But in its place was a new cage, one made of gratitude, obligation, and the smiling, absolute power of a king who had just proven himself a master of the game. I looked at Valtor, at the pure, unwavering love in his eyes. He saw the victory. I saw the cost. Our love had been the weapon that broke one tyrant, and now it was the chain that bound us to another. I squeezed his hand, a slow, cold dread seeping into my heart. We had won. We were free to love. But as I looked into the eyes of our new king, I knew, with a certainty that froze my soul, that our story was far from over. The game of thorns and shadows had not ended. It had simply found a new, more cunning player. And so, the game of thorns and shadows continues, but for now, the tale of Eliana and Valtor rests here. If this journey through the dark courts of Arden, the forbidden romance, and the deadly intrigues of the Silver Citadel captivated you, then your own chapter in this story begins now. Subscribe to this channel, so you never miss a tale when the next one unfolds. Your subscription is like a signal fire in the night, telling us storytellers to keep going. Let us know that you were here. Leave a comment and tell us, what did you think of Eliana's final choice? Who do you trust less, Lord Kyren, or the new King Adrian? Your thoughts are the whispers in the court that guide the next tale. And if the shadows of this world moved you, if you felt the clash of steel and the ache of a forbidden kiss, give this story a like. It is the highest honor you can bestow upon a knight, a lady, or a storyteller. Until the next story begins, thank you for listening.